Good evening. Today is part 2 of the Science of Living series. We started this small article on the Science of Living last week. The Science of Living article is part of, this is an article, part of 15 article series written by Mother, and they are compiled under the On Education part of combined works of Mother. Last time when we did the Science of Living, we looked at understanding what she meant by why she is calling it a science, and we also looked at why she said every one of us should have an aim and how our aim creates this ideal and creates joy in our lives. Today we will move to the next part of the article, which is perfection. Now, before we move to the next part of perfection, I would like to recall what sort of an aim she said that we should have, right. Your aim should be high and wide, generous and disinterested. So, like what we discussed last time, we would take it more in a discussion mode. So, when we are talking about a high and wide aim, a generous and disinterested aim, so let me ask you this question. There is a doctor, right, a young graduate who has just done the MBBS and came out. What will the aim of the doctor be? A fresh MBBS graduate, or maybe completed the post graduation, come out into practice. What will the aim be? The aim has to be high and wide, generous and disinterested. So, if we have to define it, it is just a small recap of what we did last time. So, how can this small kids, 25-year-old is still a kid, right? How can the aim be high? What is a high aim for such a person?
To heal the world, make sure there are no diseases.
To heal the world and make sure there are more diseases. Interesting statement. No, make sure there are no diseases. Now, this one doctor is not in the path of sadhana, is not in the path of giving up everything and going and living in Pondicherry, right. He or she must have taken a loan to complete the studies. So, now the practical part. So, there is a loan which has to be cleared, the education loan has to be cleared. By then, like the family will have the requirements that he has to earn something, and maybe they are pressurizing him or her to get married. The whole life is happening. Now, in such a condition, the young doctor has to earn money, has to do justice to his Socratic oath. At the same time, in the mind there is high and wide aim, generous but still be disinterested. How can it be possible? Is that not a contradiction? Can the person say, I am going to heal the world, but I will not take the fees? Right? I will want to give the best of the treatment to my patients, but I will not work in a corporate hospital where all the equipment is and all the facilities are. If the person is setting up an independent practice, the access to the best of it will not be there. But if you are into the corporate hospital, the corporate is exploiting the patients. Everything is a contradiction in our life. In such a case, how can aim be wide, high, generous, disinterested? In this case, in such cases, why I am giving this particular example is these are the contradictions all of us face. Whether a person is working in a bank, or we are at home, I am a homemaker say, and I have to raise my kids. I have to be very peaceful, I should not get irritated, I should not get angry, there should be compassion to the kid, but the kid is every day spoiling 10 things at home. It's frustrating for the mother. You think the mother will not give one slap, or will shout, or will get irritated? Now everyone, like people around, No, no, you have to be high and wide. No, while you are trying to raise the child, you have to be generous. Is that always possible? Life is throwing contradictions at us. In this case, what mother has said was, how do we define the high and the low of it? How do we define the narrowness or the wideness of it? Is when are we in that action looking at which part of our desire or our mind or our objective are we fulfilling, right? Why did I become a doctor in the first place, the doctor, or why did I become, in my case, maybe a consultant? Why? I want to have a comfortable salary, or a doctor, the medical profession is where we can earn a lot, so I would want to have it. I want to have fame as the best neurosurgeon in the world, one, versus like what you said, I would want to cure cancer, or I will want to help people in. So, these are two. That does not mean the practical aspect of making a living is not happening, but we are not limited to the narrowness of I, me, myself, my family, my desires, my family should have this. There is a wider component to the aim. That does not mean we are letting go of the practical aspect of it. The highness is, am I just there to make money, or am I there to serve the society or do good? Am I there to, the doctor can also think like that. I misunderstood your statement, like the more the disease, the more patients I have, right? I have invested so much in this huge multi-specialty hospital, so the more the people are coming in, so don't keep prescribing 10 more tests, keep the person hospitalized for 2 more days, versus I am going to do good for the person. So, when mother was talking in the question answers of Jan 13th, 1951, she was giving this. How do we define? Is there a component of our life which is beyond me, or is it just me? In every aspect, if we are able to discern between me versus the wider self, within me, outside me, within my circle, outside my circle, and to what extent can I fulfill my ambitions, desires, but without just being limited to it. Am I going and doing justice to the skill sets or the intellect that has been given to me? That is the first part. So, this is in, like we are just connecting it back to last week. The next statement that she immediately makes is, whatever your ideal, an aim is there only because I am aspiring for an ideal. Whatever the ideal, it cannot be perfectly realized unless you have realized perfection in yourself. So, it is not sufficient to just have an aim and go about it. Have I perfected it? Am I perfect? Have I realized this perfection within myself? So, today we will focus on just this part of what does she mean by saying realizing perfection. There, when we talk about it, she is talking about two components. One is becoming conscious of yourself, and second component is becoming aware of the movements within you. The first step, even before going into perfecting ourselves, for us to initiate the work of perfection, is the primary part of becoming conscious. And what does she mean by it? When I will just take this small thing. The moment we were doing a lot of work here, and we were ordering a lot of wire, right, electrical wire and the whole thing, and we handle wires. To see the wire, it is just one single unit, a length of a wire. The moment we see the electricians working on it, they open the outer covering, and inside there are multiple wires, different colors, and each one they are connecting it to a different aspect. So, the single unit is suddenly gone on into becoming, there are multiple smaller wires within it which are of different purposes, and then you go down, split it, there are further components in each one. when I was reading this, suddenly that visual had come into my mind, that she says there are different parts in your being, and each part, it has its respective activity, and all these parts are coming together and creating the action, the way we act, the way we react, etc. Now, how many of us are able to distinguish these individual parts within us? It is me, my mind, and I am who I am going about reacting, acting or responding to the situations around me, but are we aware, are we conscious of which part this movement is coming from? So, here the criticality is of becoming conscious is first understanding the different parts and then distinguishing one part from another. Why? Why should we understand these parts? She puts very beautifully, become aware of the origin of the movements that occur in you. And what are these movements? The many impulses, the reactions, the conflicting wills, the desires, all these are happening within us, but which part are they originating from? If we do not understand that root where it is originating from, which part are we going to then transform? Is it sufficient for us to say, the last time when we said knowledge has to go and transform the consciousness, that is what Aurobindo said, the objective of acquiring that knowledge. And the beauty of why I fell in love with this particular article is it is not just theory. She is given steps and exercises into realizing that, becoming aware of the consciousness, becoming aware of the different parts. So, let us go, this is the topic today. So, I will want to move, stay with this. I want to introduce three words which Sri Aurobindo uses as foundations of sadhana, right. He talks about achanchalata, sthirata, shanti, and these are the three components, he says, are the primary foundations of sadhana. Let us look at these three words and come back to the different parts. We sit in meditation, we want to start a small project. What is the first thing that happens for beginners when we are sitting in meditation, or we have just come from a busy day, we sit. The first thing that the body does is it wants you to move, it wants you to, the limbs are restless, the hands are restless, or the mind is restless, the mind is going somewhere. So, right from the physical part to your emotional part to your mental part, there is a restlessness, and only after we go beyond that restlessness until sit, once we acquire that achanchalata, chanchalata is restlessness, achanchalata is not having the restlessness, it is a negative word, even he says it is a negative word. Then comes, we beat the achanchalata, we go into sthirata, where we are getting the stability, and only then we are creating the shanti, the peace and the calm. And until unless we find these, we will not be able to go and start looking within ourselves and looking at within ourselves from that point of stability. And here is where it beautifully intertwines, right. When you sit, the first thing that kicks off after your physical being has settled down, if you observe, is the next part of the mental being starts getting activated. The moment we talk about the mental being in man, man is a mental creature, that is what Sri Aurobindo said. The next part is where we go into the intuitive being, once we evolve, transform. The mental being is what she discusses so very clearly. Once she says you have to distinguish these parts, she says it is assiduous, it is an assiduous study which demands much perseverance and sincerity. For us to go into that assiduous study, the three components of the foundations, the Achanchalata, Sthirata and Shanti, we will have to at least aspire for that and then go into this assiduous study, because this is the most interesting part. She says, I would want you to be conscious of, as I am reading this, what in your experience are you connecting with? Which parts of your past or your current or your situations are you are able to visualize, or they are coming back to you as I read this. For, she says, it demands much perseverance and sincerity. For man's nature, especially his mental nature, has a spontaneous tendency to give a favorable explanation for everything he thinks, feels, says or does. Is this what happens? We are a mental being. Why I am angry, I am lashing out, or I am in a rush, there is the traffic jam and I am late. The first thing I do is honk, get irritated with the person who is blocking my way, and I justify saying I am going, I have to be on time, mother's work has to be on time. So, being on time is the justification I give for my irritation, for my rush, for everything I do on the way to being here for a good work. And the mental aspect of it is justifying that I am right, they are wrong. For blocking the road, they are wrong. Right? And this, she says, is what we will have to first beat, and the word she used is assiduously, at every single point, diligently, the most difficult aspect of our being, of not justifying. Think about the last time you justified, right? Whether it is a strength, whether it is a weakness, whether it is reactions, desires, the vital aspects of everything that we are, not just the vital aspect, every aspect. The reason why she is asking us to be cognizant of the mental part of our being, which is justifying, and she has wrote it beautifully in the explanation. There are only about 3 or 4 question answers where she discussed this part very clearly, and I will send the link of the document in the group. Right? Now, the example that she is given. Imagine, for instance, you go to see someone and beforehand you know what you are going to discuss with them. Right? Automatically in your mind those words are getting played, you are preparing, whether it is a meeting or you are going to discuss something with somebody, you are preparing beforehand all the words that you are going to speak out and what you are going to discuss, how you are going to discuss. Mentally all this preparation is done, you have literally reviewed this or lived through this continuously. Once you are in front of the person, are you able to speak exactly what you have planned? Are you able to discuss exactly what you actually practiced discussing with the same tone, with the same emotion, etc.? How often does it happen exactly as you planned? What happens at that time? You say nothing, or in other words, you explain what you wanted to, or you go completely contrary and you come out and say, why did I say this? Or what happened to me? Why did I not talk? Can you at that point distinguish the reason why you were not what you wanted to be? The plan that you made, the practice that you went through, where is that coming from versus what has actually been said, how you said it, how you reacted, or if you have not talked at all and you went completely blank, where is that coming from? And here there are 2 aspects, one inside us, another outside us. Become conscious of yourself, if you can divide it into these 2. all the reasons inside me which determined what I said or what I did not say, and how much of my environment, how much of the person I am in front of am I reacting to, or am I responding to, or I have been influenced by it. Are we able to, now these are the two aspects, if we are able to break them. Suddenly if you see, you come here and it is so peaceful. As long as I am in the bhavan, we are all very peaceful, I am very joyful, I am happy. But I can't retain the same thing when I am back at home. The moment I go home, automatically all the irritations come, all the things that have to be done, all the sounds, all the emotions, everything they come in. So where are these movements coming from? Is it me, inside me, or is it the environment? Where here in the question answer she was like nicely explaining about how, one, we have to become aware of the different parts in ourselves, two, understand that we are not individuals isolated from the environment. There is a constant exchange, interchange and influence of movements, energies, vibrations happening from the environment within us, and we are all connected in such a way where the person here in front of you versus the same Sharada outside in the background, which is where 10 people are not seeing me, or maybe Sharada as a person interacting with only one. All these are different people, and all these people are a consequence of the construction of the inside as well as the outside. So, the aspect that the awareness, at which point can we become aware of what is inside versus what is around, and how do we practice that, and there connecting back to achanchalata, sthirata and shanti. Imagine the restlessness inside me. I can never ever be able to understand which part this movement is originating from, or if I am being influenced by somebody. If I am absolutely nervous about this talk itself, right, and being with this article and for years and one by one, one to one, the discussion is completely different. But the moment the mic is put here and I am supposed to have a monologue on the same thing I have been living with for all these years, suddenly the mind goes off into a kind of a panic. And what is the panic? Which I have, like, Archana has been witness to this, that will I, I might not know everything, right? I might say something wrong, or I might have interpreted it wrong, or I would not be able to translate to all the ones who have been living with Sri Aurobindo and the mother for all these years, and here I am with little one article coming, all the fears, all the insecurities, everything comes flooding in, but the same fear, the same insecurity is not there when I am actually applying it in my life, or training others, or doing these workshops, etc. But the same thing comes when I have to sit in front of all the devotees who have been here through years. Which part is it coming from? Am I reacting, am I being myself here, or am I myself there? Which, now for me to become conscious of it, as long as I am restless about how people will perceive me, I will never be conscious. As long as I am afraid of what will somebody think of me, I will never be able to be conscious of now here exactly what is happening, or even when there is so much vibration happening inside myself reacting to the environment, and mother is there saying I am trying to help you,